Those seat heaters, up to a point, then you're on fire. It is it goes like, wow, that's great, on fire. Oh, we're on now. I was hoping to be caught in the middle of something embarrassing, so that worked out. It's cold down here, and we're talking about things like seat heaters in your car, which can be helpful when it's like 25 degrees outside. All right, which is not what you expect in Tennessee. Certainly not in South Tennessee, but it is cold. All right, well, welcome to the Tuesday night Torah Study. Yay! That was completely overwhelming. Okay. Although the 12 of you did your best job you could. All right, and I only have 9 readers today, so not every one of you has to read them. We're almost up to the point where everybody will have to read, but it's cold out there. I give you a lot of credit for being here. It's very nice and warm in here, which is funny because in the summer it's freezing in here. But now it actually is warm in here, which is good. Okay. So for those of you online, we are welcoming you here. We appreciate you being here tonight. We're going to continue our journey through the Torah cycle, through the book of Shemot, the book of Exodus. This is Torah portion Vayira, which means and I appeared, or and appeared. Okay, Vayira. That's Exodus 6:2 to 9:35. Okay, 6:2 to 9:35. We're going to have 9 readers. Okay, so 9:35 is actually the end of chapter 9. So we're going to cover most of 6, 7, 8, and 9. Okay. So for those of you that are familiar, you know how this works. If you're not, we'll explain. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to take up any prayer needs that we have. A couple of announcements we'll go ahead and do, although I don't have my announcement sheet up here, so I'll just have to make it up as I go along. And as I remember them. And then we'll also be then doing the Torah portion reading. And then we'll discuss what we read, and that'll be pretty much cover about 2 hours. Okay? So that'll kind of work. All right, so we'll begin with prayer time. So if you have a prayer need, prayer request, praise report, whatever that we need to cover, if you're online, we've got Manny on the live stream desk. And do you have Kurt on there too? Yes? Okay, Kurt Meyer's on there. Please respect their leadership in the room. Okay. If you're here, if you raise your hand, Steve Waffle will come around with the mic. Okay, we'll begin with Sarah Beth.
Prayer request, I have my interview this Friday, so that Abba would have his way.
Okay. So that's an internal interview. Okay. Okay, Rabbi Tom.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to ask everyone to pray for our Philippine brethren. There's a young man on another island about 6 hours away from where Jet Singh and his congregation are. His name is J.L. Smallville. And he was telling me that the ISR scriptures have been printed in Tagalog. And his family kind of struggles with English, although he's pretty proficient. But they're all waiting to see you. And when you come down, they're going to travel over to the main island, to Manila. I don't know how many are there, but I saw a photo. There's at least 7 or 8 people in it.
Fantastic.
And so they're,
Fantastic.
I think the Philippines is a great potential for growth. We have to pray for them.
Awesome. Definitely. All right. And so when the mic is moving around, it's coming over to Charles. Let me just say this because I'm going to have to remember things without having my notes to write on. Okay, so we do have the new website being worked on, and one of the things we're going to try to put on the website is a kind of a rabbi schedule, like where I'm going to be. So that way, if you know where I'm going to be and you're anywhere near there, you can you want to attend or you want to know what the events are. We'll have a contact person in that area. So for example, going to the Philippines, you know what the dates are and you'll know who to contact if you want to. If you happen to live near there, like this gentleman lives close enough that you'll know how to do that. So that's the same thing here in the States. If I happen to be going someplace here in the U.S., we'll be able to post it that way. Because a lot of people will ask me, hey, can you let us know when you're... I said, well, I can't write all that down and remember to contact you if I'm going to be someplace. But I can tell you where you can find it. So as soon as we get the new site up, I know we already have a new site up, but we're redoing it again. We're hopeful to have it, within the next couple of weeks. I looked at it today. I started approving some things and decided certain things that need to be a certain way. And so we're hoping to have that worked out, so just keep that in mind. Okay, Charles, and also I'll be announcing it from the mic if you do get to watch Torah studies and or Shabbat. Okay, go ahead.
I just want to say shalom, shalom to everybody. And I mentioned on the men's Marco Polo to prayer for my wife's family. She lost her grandfather yesterday, and so just keep her and her side of the family in prayer. And I got a praise report. A couple of weeks ago, I mentioned a friend of mine that was in ICU from an overdose and drugs and all that stuff. Well, he is doing well. He's out of ICU. He's off the breathing machine, so praise Abba for that. Maybe he's going to start opening his eyes a little. I don't know. So just keep him in prayer. His name's Randall Steele.
Amen. I'll certainly keep that in prayer. Okay, anybody else? Okay, Steve?
All right, I just want to give praise to Abba about my work situation. It's blowing up, man. Full probably till Passover if I can get people to wait.
Steve's always been a man after my own heart. I mean, he'll call me and be like, there's not a lot of work going on, and then he'll be all upset, and then 2 days, 5 days later, he'll be like, I don't know what to do. I can't keep up with all the work. There's too much work. But I'll tell you what, that's just one of those things that you see. He moved here, had to start all from scratch, and this is a guy who has his own business and everything, which really is a client-based, home contractor type thing. Guy who does all that work, and all of, he's only been here a little while, and the phone is just ringing off the hook. And that's just a praise to his quality of work, and also to, him trusting in Abba to provide. Amen. All right, live stream.
Okay, they're coming in. You might recognize this one, Juliana Berkson.
Wait, hold on. That name sounds so familiar. Hi, honey.
Oh. Prayers for my dad to get relief from his leg pain. Carrie Soveri.
Wait, hold on. I guess that means you managed to get in the house. Sorry. You know what's really scary is when you're going to someone's house that's 91 years old, can't really hear, and they're sleeping and the door's locked. That's the last call I had with her. So the fact that she's on, I'm assuming that means she got in the house. Because you can knock and ring the bell all you want. They can't hear it. You're just stuck outside. So anyway, new plan. Get a spare key. Yes, we're going to work that out. So my prayer is that we will get the spare key. No, but I'm glad to hear that you're successfully in there. Okay, who you had next?
Okay, Carrie Soveri. Prayers for my oldest son and his father's family. His grandmother passed away yesterday morning. Robert Fiorito. Please pray for our family. We're starting the process to move to America. Please pray that all goes quickly and smoothly.
Amen. Amen. Yeah. That's a long trip from Thailand.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Stacy, I would like to pray for my friend Jennifer, who just lost her stepfather yesterday. I don't even know how to say this name, but prayers for a new job, possibility that would force me to work the Sabbath, but financial situations leave me no reasonable options. Pray for guidance.
What was that last part? Because it's hard to not work on. I didn't catch that. Say it again.
It says prayers for new job possibility that would force me to work the Sabbath, but financial situations leave me no reasonable options. Pray for guidance.
Okay, let me give guidance to everybody who has that situation. A, if you're looking for work and can't find work, that unless those jobs are requiring Sabbath, you're not trained well enough for industries that don't work Saturday. You need to think about how to retrain yourself. I'm not picking on you for having that, but you need to accept and acknowledge. I mean, I remember getting it. Now, this person may also have a job that's about to shift to Saturday. I'll deal with that too. But, I remember going to speak at a place one time that was affiliated with MTOI, and one of the ladies after service said to me, can you please pray for my son? He can't find a job that doesn't require Sabbath. I said, what does he do? Well, he works in retail. He stocks shelves, what he does. And he was probably in his late 20s, early 30s. I said, he needs to change careers. I mean, at some point you need to aim at something that doesn't require, there's a lot of jobs out there, probably more jobs that don't work Saturday than do. I don't mean like more people working not Saturday. I mean more types of jobs. I mean, the retail industry hires a lot of people. and the restaurants and everything else that work Saturdays. So people-wise, maybe there's an awful lot. But types of jobs, there's a lot of them that never work Saturday. And just you need to start aiming at some of those. Now, if you have a job that switched you, or you were already working Saturday and then you came to come into agreement and understanding about covenant and Sabbath and that kind of stuff, well, then your goal is not to pray for Abba to like change the job, but your goal is to go now and realize that you need to find another job. Abba's opening up a different opportunity for you somewhere if you could just look and open and search for it, because you're now being shown also that you're in an industry where that can happen. I've had many a person come to me after becoming Torah observant, because Abba wants to test you, and say, this is so weird. I worked here for 20 years and they never required Saturdays. Last week the boss said everybody's working every other Saturday now. And I've worked here 20 years, that was never the case. Because before this, there was nobody there that needed to be tested. So now that company has an employee that needs to be challenged and tested to have the Deuteronomy 8:2 test. Is it in your heart to keep the commands or not? So that being said, this doesn't mean, I want to make sure we're clear, that I'm encouraging everybody just to go ahead and lose their job or quit the next day because of the Saturday thing. What I am saying is you need to make it a high priority, and you should be planning to be off that job, within a very short period. I'm talking, months, not years. Okay? Now, some of you will be zealous and just say, nope, and that's good. So you can say to your boss, say, trust in you need to do, and say, nope, I'm not working Saturday. If you need to fire me, I understand, and that's fine. I'm also telling you that, and this is where I think grace comes in. I mean, from the point of view, like when you have a bill, it has a grace period, like where you don't have to pay without getting charged interest because it's got 30 days or whatever. I think Abba gives you in this world a short period of time when you come into a challenge to fix it. Okay, but you need to keep it short and you need to work aggressively to fix it. Does that make sense? Okay, some people are like, oh, no, you still got to put food on the table. You still got to do the other things that you have to do. Abba knows you work for Pharaoh. You live in Egypt, so to speak. Okay, this is, under Rome, whatever way you want to look at it. But you want to make sure that you're doing what you need to do quickly. Because I've had people say, well, I have to stay at that job and work because Abba wouldn't want my family to starve. No, he doesn't, but it doesn't mean you have to stay at that job. There are other jobs. Go get one of them. Well, you're not trained to do anything that does, well, then go retrain. Okay? We have to overcome and I want to make sure this is interpreted correctly, psychological and emotional laziness. I don't want to call you physically lazy. You may be doing a job that's very physically demanding and you work very hard. But when you're not willing to make the effort to retrain, retool, re-educate so that you could do something better, that's laziness. But it's not the same laziness of being someone who works hard. I get that. But you're not willing to pay that price. Anytime you have the words, not willing to pay a price, remember the highest price that could be paid was paid for you. So what price are you not willing to pay? So don't be emotionally and psychologically lazy, saying it's too much work. Because mentally and emotionally, you don't want to make that effort to learn how to do something different and new. So I'm not saying you're lazy as not a hard worker. You may be an incredibly high producer and high worker, but you're in the wrong industry for that if you're going to keep the Sabbath. Fine. Go ahead and make the effort to step out of your comfort zone, especially if you've been somewhere for 20 years and you've not had to try and do anything different for all the time, to start to learn how to do something else. You may realize you love it. And it's a great life experience to change all these things. You're just afraid to make the move. But don't use the excuse, well, Abba wouldn't want my family to starve. No, he doesn't, but he doesn't need you to be standing there breaking Sabbath either. Is that clear to everybody, hopefully? Okay, Rabbi Tom? Wait, hold on. We have to get you a mic real quick. Hold on, it's coming around. We'll get Steve to bring it to you real quick. I probably could have walked there with mine faster. I should have done that. He was on the whole other side of the room. Okay, Rabbi Tom.
You. I was just going to add that oftentimes people make the mistake of asking their employer, may I have the Sabbath off or can I have it off? You don't, because when you ask, you're leaving the choice up to him or her. So I've never done this. I'd say, I do not work Friday nights or Saturdays. And in an appropriate and polite way, I say it's a non-negotiable issue.
Right, but again, at this point, you're not doing it in a place where you are a primary provider for 20 years at a job and all that other stuff, and
yeah.
you're really not prepared to do anything else.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a little bit easier for you at this point. And it's also a lot easier for all of you that when you first start a job to let them know up front what your deal is. But if you've already been someplace and now all of a sudden the rules have changed, and that's happening a lot out there, then realize I would, if it was up to me and I would sit and take that at Judgment Day, say that you have a short window of time to fix the problem. Okay? Now some of you, because some of you will be like, well, what would you do, Rabbi? I don't want to tell you what I would do because you don't need to do it just because it's what I would do. Some of you are going to zealously just say, that's it, hard line, I'll take the consequences, and that's totally, perfectly all right, okay? Others of you are not there yet where you can do that. So I'm saying that no matter where you are, the window of time, the clock is ticking, okay? And you will be judged based on how urgently you fix the problem, not based on the fact that you're not emotionally able to handle it right now or financially able to handle it right now, etc. For those of you that have not experienced this yet, you need to be putting aside an emergency fund of a month or 2 or 3's expenses so that if it happens, you can say, I'm sorry, Mr. Boss, Mrs. Boss, I can't do this. And if they say, well, then you got to go bye-bye, you're like, that's okay. I've got 3 months' expenses, and I have time to go get a new job. Some of you thinking, well, there's no way on what I make I can put away that kind of money. Well, then you're in the wrong job anyway. Think about it, okay? Then you're in the wrong job anyway, okay? So this may be Abba helping you to get to a place where you can put enough money away that you can have an emergency fund in case, God forbid, something happens to you and you're incapacitated for a number of months, okay? And that could happen. You know people right now that that's happened to. Maybe it's you, maybe it's somebody close to you, but you know. Okay? And we're going to talk about that during the finance class when we have that class coming up here soon. Okay, what else?
On that same note, just to clarify for somebody who doesn't quite understand, if they don't quite understand, this person, there's a Gabriel, he wants to know, as a retired PO, is Rabbi suggesting that guys that have 10, 15, 20 plus years on the job completely uproot their families with upheaval and huge loss of pay while risking their lives at the same time?
Okay, I get the first part. I don't know how that risks anybody's life. Okay, that part I don't get. Okay, so there needs to be a clarification. Listen, go listen to the Sabbath teaching because I don't know that I could really answer every Sabbath question here, but I'll answer this as quick as I can. I believe there's a difference when you are in what I call emergency life and death services. So PO being a police officer, I'm assuming. So if you're a police officer, EMT, emergency room hospital worker, things that need to be available if somebody has something terrible happen to them on a Sabbath. Because let me tell you something. Both my children ended up in the ER when they were little babies on a Friday night. Okay? It happens. All right? My daughter slipped and tripped on something and hit her head, needed stitches. That happened on, of course, Friday night after sundown. My son also had a problem and ended up in the hospital, and he was there on a Friday night. So these things happened when they were little, and I'm glad somebody was there. Okay? And if you have something that's of a criminal nature that could be happening to you on a Sabbath, be happy that the police are available. All right? By the way, get counsel before you decide that your job is a necessary service. Okay? Because I've had people try to justify almost anything. Really, it has to do with if you're not doing it, somebody will die. Or something really tragic will happen. Are we clear on that? Okay? So that doesn't mean everybody that works in a hospital is in necessary services. Your job can be handled, and the people you're monitoring, somebody can take care of that. But if you're an EMT, ambulance driver, working in the ER, where all the urgent emergency things that literally happen on Shabbat are happening, you're in emergency services. A police officer would be the same thing. Now, that being said, I would only have taken those jobs because my heart is to do that level of protecting and serving. And I would not take financial gain from Sabbath work. So we have counseled and encouraged people who do that to do the math, figure out what you get paid on Saturday, and put it in the box. Oh, you just want the money? I don't care about the money. You don't need to be having that money go in your pocket. If you're doing it because you want to save lives and really protect people and everything else, and that's your reason, then you're not doing it for the money. Yeah, it's nice that it pays. So don't put that money in your pocket. Now, so if you've got 15, 20 years in there, well, if you got 20 years in there, you can retire and do something else. Okay, that's up to you. But I'm not asking you to uproot anything. If anything, Abba's asking you to do some things. I don't know why you involve me. Why did you involve me? I'm just answering questions. I didn't put you in the situation you're in. Oh, you asking me? I'm not asking you to do anything. I'm giving advice and counsel. Okay? But realize that maybe that would help us to understand that, yes, there is in my opinion, a difference. In Israel, there was a watchman on the wall 7 days a week, every day. There was somebody there watching the walls. Okay? And if somebody got sick or somebody got injured, there were people available to take them to, even if it was Shabbat. Okay? Yeshua demonstrates some of that when he heals people on Shabbat. That it's okay to do that kind of stuff. However, nobody's paying him to do it. Okay, and that's sort of the way I would encourage you to balance that out. Okay, next question.
I just want to comment about the giving your work for the Sabbath if you're in emergency services. My wife, when she was alive, did that. And we sent her work money because it was every other Saturday or every third Saturday she was required to
At a hospital.
work
She was
in the
working at a
hospital in
hospital,
the ER.
Yeah.
So, but we took that money and sent it and told it as a work tithe. And I'll tell you, we never missed it. Abba continued to bless us up there, so I can't see why. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, I wouldn't call it a work tithe, but it is an offering because it's not because tithe has to do with the word 10th% or a tenth. So it's not a tithe, but it is. I would call it your work offering. It's just something that you're saying, okay, I got paid for work. It was Saturday, and I don't want that in my pocket. Okay. All right. Next.
Okay. King's daughter, I would appreciate prayers for a new job. Harold and Betty prays that things are moving along with sale. Prayers for favor with the appraisal. Lady Di, prayers for family recovering from cold. Pray for son in China that he is not exposed to SARS. Prayers for MTOI family and friends. Sorry. Oh, my phone, sorry. Perfect timing. Every time. Walk softly upon the earth. Prayers needed for our autistic daughter has gotten cut off from part of her therapy. She never gets a break, and she's got severe PTSD, so this is bad news. High anxiety in our home. Robert Wyatt, prayers for Tamaro's cousin Beth. Her husband went in this morning for dialysis. Attendants found him unresponsive. He is on life support and still unresponsive. Olivia and Janet Hoffman, please kindly pray for safe travels for Janet driving out of state for an advanced training in couple therapy. Alicia, keep my husband Michael in prayer. Had to see a retina specialist and have a cardioid artery ultrasound for possible blockage after the eye doctor saw something in his left eye. Chantel Jackson, prayers for our job situation, please. Michelle Perez, prayers for Rebitz and Julie's dad, Michelle's parents, that transition goes well, and all the Marco Polo ladies and men's prayers. Shira, unusual volume of joint pain today, seeking wisdom about what's going on. Thanks for your prayers. Sherry, prayers for our kids. They have sinus infections, and prayers for Yahweh to guide us into the right jobs. Britt Lee, prayer that I may improve my self-control and discipline and my thoughts that are always Yahweh-centric. Prayers for her new job, that training dates will change and not be on Shabbat. And for her new job, they hired her and told her they hired me, and I told them I couldn't work on Shabbat, and they still hired me and promised I wouldn't work on Shabbat, so praise Yah for that, but mandatory training is on Sabbath. Kirsten, prayers for a boy named Steele who is suffering from many seizures a day since he was 7. They found out that Wi-Fi makes it worse, so small improvements since limiting the exposure. Prayers for healing.
Okay, I want to interrupt. I had a thought. Sorry.
Okay.
This came up in a discussion in a council, but I'm going to use it in a different way. And I'm not picking on the person because this happens a lot, where people get a new job and the training is on Saturday or over the weekend or some other thing like that. And you struggle. And I really don't understand why you struggle. Well, because you want the job. But see, if I told you that if you, never ate another piece of chocolate or never did some other thing you love, I would give you $1 million. Or I would give, I gave you some ridiculous physical, fleshly incentive. You would make every effort to do that. Your Heavenly Father is offering you eternal life. Why is there a problem? Why is there a struggle? Why is there if that's the case, I'll get a different job? Why? What is the price? The incentive can't be greater. And I'm not picking on this person. This is a common problem where things come up and people struggle with their choices, and I don't get the struggle. I do intellectually. I do from a fleshly point of view, but not if you're a covenanted person. Because you have an expectation that in exchange for your obedience, you get to live forever. With no pain, with no tears. Every tear will be wiped away. There will be no more suffering, no more pain, no more. And you're going to worry about, now I got to look for a new job. Well, so what? Israel had to wander from city to city for 40 years. Would you have, if you were one of them, because by the way, it doesn't tell you, but I'm sure a lot of people didn't stay. There are people that just decided, well, forget this, I'm going to go somewhere. Not most of them, obviously, but there are people that I'm sure decided, I don't need to be wandering out here for 40 years. Or however, maybe they didn't even realize how long it was, whatever. But I'm just saying is there's there's a city right over there we could just go to or stay or whatever it is. Or the cloud would stand up and move, the cloud would lift, and they would well, I like it here, I'm staying. What's your price? Think about when the Torah issues come up, why do you struggle? My answer to you is probably because you have not valued enough what you're being offered. Because if I offered you, I actually told somebody this story earlier today, if I buried $1 million under a pile of all kinds of rock and dirt and this and that, and told you that it was pretty deep in there, and you had no shovel, you had no proper instrument to dig with, I promise you, you would look around and find anything you can make into a shovel, into a stick, into something. You would figure out how to dig that thing out. You'd bleed your fingers. You would do something. You'd use your feet. You'd use your shoe. Whatever it was, right? You would get as creative as possible to figure out how to get and unlock where that stuff was. Wouldn't you? All you have to do is get it. It's there. How come you can't figure out how to get a job that doesn't work on Saturday? I'm just saying. I'm not picking on anybody. It's a heart problem, and I'm not picking on you with that either. We all struggle at times with this. I own that. You should own that. I'm saying, so this is not condescending. This is not judgment. This is not any of that kind of thing. It's not criticism. It's just asking you to challenge yourself and ask the question, am I serious with this? Is my heart right? Do I want it bad enough? Because I value what's being offered. See, you're still coming from, I'm in. See, if you don't let go of that once saved, always saved, I'm in problem, you will never work hard enough on your emotional place, your mental place to make right decisions. I'm not talking about works like you have to work physically hard enough. You've got to make right choices. And you'll only do that if you value this enough. But you don't. And that's why you struggle. At those moments, not at all. A lot of the time you do. But there are those moments where you're tested and you get an F. You do. One of those in the graphics, fail. But you do. Be honest with yourself. Don't be a baby. Don't be emotional. Don't go crawl up in a ball and get all mad at me. Own it. Look yourself in the mirror and go, you know what? He's right. I have not valued this enough. I have not put a high enough priority on this which would be, I know, the highest possible priority over all else. Over your family, over your friends, over your job, over your career, over your preferences especially. I want, I like, who cares? You're being offered forever. Okay? All right. Sorry, just needed to hear that. Okay? I mean, we can learn all about Exodus, and yeah, you're going to hear about them leaving and plagues and all that other stuff. You know, that's great stories. You've heard it. You know it. But if you watch, you'll realize they didn't get their heart right in that journey. They knew they wanted to leave, but they didn't go completely ready to do it fully on his terms. They weren't ready to trust. This is a trust issue. You don't trust that going his way will provide you better because you're thinking you're going to lose something. Okay? All relationships, I had a conversation today about relationships, husbands, wives, and about how a woman comes to be married to a man. If they're doing it right, she needs to realize that doesn't mean you're giving up or losing anything. You don't get lost in the man and everything. You're there to be his helpmeet, and he's there to cover and provide you, but you're coming to form a one. And you're half of that one. You're not leading, but you're half. Well, the same thing with this. You coming into covenant with Yah. Yah wants you to be blessed. He wants you to be abundant. He wants, I don't want to sound like those name it, claim it guys, but he wants you to have all that stuff. If you would just patiently trust him, you will have what you need. He doesn't promise you'll have what you want, but you'll have what you need. Okay? And if you end up in a place that you really struggle, it's because you needed to deal with whatever you're struggling with. See, some of you will move here or come to a Sukkot or do something where you actually spend time with the body, and then you'll want to quit and run away, and that's because he exposed something you needed that you didn't like and you didn't want to deal with. So you'll run away. People do that all the time here. You may do that with a job. You got an employer that's a problem or some coworkers that are a problem, and you want to run. Not because it's a Torah issue or a Sabbath issue, but because you're irritated. Whenever you want to run, ask yourself, why am I wanting to run? Did Yahweh allow this to happen so I can learn something that I haven't learned yet? I don't have a problem with you leaving after you feel satisfied you learned what you needed to learn. But don't run away, move towards. Don't run away, move towards. It could be in any area. Husbands, wives, having a struggle. Don't run away from the marriage. Learn what you needed to learn. If the two of you agree to move away, that's fine. But make sure that you learned everything you needed to learn, made every effort you needed to make before you make that decision. So you're not running away. You're not doing an emotional bailout. You're making a logical, rational decision that needed to be made. Are we clear on these things? Go look in that mirror. See anything I'm talking about right now. I say, do I own any of that? Am I doing any of this in my life? Go ahead. Go ahead and ask questions because I'm going to keep going. And it's 8:30 already. Go ahead.
That's good stuff. Mark, prayer that Adonai bless me with a new job, and prayer that there will be Messianic Torah Observant Congregation here in Singapore.
Oh, I'd like to go there. Let's start one.
Sounds good. Yeah.
And by the way, part of the prayers is we had our meetings this weekend, and the South African guys, one of them is moving to Shanghai, and we may have an opportunity when I go to the Philippines to also go to Shanghai and China at the same time, because he's hoping to be there because he's going in February, I think. So he's hoping to be there for a few months and maybe see what's what there, so I can go over and visit in Shanghai as well. So that's kind of cool. Singapore, it's in the same area. Don't mind going kind of in that, that region of the Far East. All right, what else?
All right, Jerome, prayers for all that is going on. Yah's will be done. Rebecca, pray for the Simpsons. We are a bunch of sickos.
Well, I know you mean under the weather, but okay. I hope. You sickos. Okay, never mind.
Odd Aunt, praising Yah for my husband's relationship with Abba, and praying, and for her unconditional love for him and healthy boundaries. James Strickland, welcome to him. This is his first time on his live presentation. He has been Messianic for 12 years and needs a worship family.
Amen. And probably also to listen to the teaching, what is worship? Okay, never mind. I can't resist myself sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yeah, maybe not sometimes, all the time. Okay, go ahead.
Santi Lee, pray for wisdom and strength to bear witness to unsaved close circle in celebrating Chinese New Year in the weekend.
Hey, Santi, if you know people in Shanghai, so get in touch with me in case I get to go, because I know she's got contacts in Hong Kong, but I don't know about Shanghai. So Santi, just so you know you heard me say about going to Shanghai, but if you know people there as well, I know you've got people in Hong Kong. So anyway, go ahead.
Moreljo, Marlene, and David in Ontario would like prayer for our son that has stopped communicating with the family. Tracy, prayers hoping to go back to work soon. Dale Hersey, prayers for your president and reign for our nation. Klein family, prayers for a new grandson that has been in INCU for 2 days. We'll be there till Friday. And Robert Anderson, prayer request for my Aunt Teresa Anderson. Her husband, David, passed away Sunday. Teresa has health concerns of her own, too. That is it.
Wow. So we had, I know at least Thailand, Australia, Singapore. We had a lot of people, from a lot of places on today. That was pretty cool. Yeah. All right, Canada. I know some of the Canadians were on there. All right, anybody else? All right, let's get somebody to go ahead and open us in prayer. I'll give it to Charles. He'll do it. No? Craig, you raise your hand? Well, I'll have you close. He's standing next to Charles. Charles will open. You can close. All right, go ahead.
Abba, we just thank you for this time to come, and we ask that you answer, that you will answer these prayers that's been spoken tonight, and to just as we get into your Torah, Father, that you will let us apply it to our lives and soak it in, Father, and we just thank you and love you, and thank you, Abba, for what you do. In Yeshua HaMashiach's name, amen.
Amen. Amen. All right, thank you. And by the way, I know I'm in short sleeves, but I do that all the time. It is actually 20-something degrees outside, so I don't want to confuse people saying, I thought he said it was cold, but he's wearing a short sleeve t-shirt. But that's just me, so don't worry about that. All right. Let me give you a couple of quick announcements, and then we'll go ahead and get into the study. So just quick reminders. I don't have my announcement sheet in front of me, but we'll hopefully kind of flow through it. So a reminder to everybody on live stream, especially, that we do this every Tuesday, 8 o'clock Eastern time. Okay? And then on Saturdays, we do a live stream of our Shabbat service at 1 o'clock Eastern time. We really start about 1:15, but the live stream starts at 1. And so just so that you're aware of that, you're all welcome to come and participate with us virtually. Okay? Then we have coming up in March, we have Purim. I don't have the date in front of me, but it's probably up there. There it is. No, it just says March 2020. I think it's like March 10th. Okay? So you have Purim coming up. And then we have, and I saw that the Parsha Pros was up there. On the Tuesday night Torah study things, we do have a young Messianic Torah Observant Israelite website, ymtoi.org, and it's for the youth that are part of MTOI, and they are, and for those of you that are new online and don't know what MTOI is, it's Messianic Torah Observant Israel, which I think is a good descriptor of what we are, okay? And, because I've had people say, well, are you Messianic Jews? No. Are you Jews for Jesus? No. Well, we're Messianic, we're Torah observant, and we're Israel. See, that's kind of like what we are. So if you're ever wondering what to say when people ask you what you are, just think of the name of the organization. I picked that name because it describes what we are. Okay? So we do have a Torah portion program. It's free. It's on the website on ymtoi.org. For those of you that use the Parsha Pearls program, there will not be any new ones. The old ones will still be there from previous years that you can still use for about another 5 parts in Exodus. Okay, so we got another 5 or 6 weeks before we'll have more. Okay, so starting, I think, in this 8th portion from Exodus or something like that, we'll start them again. Okay, so that being said, then we also have Passover in April. Okay, so I covered everything. I kind of went out of order. And so we have that on our website. There's a registration form. We have over 160, 70 people already registered to come. And so if you're coming, please let us know. And the registration is on the MTOI.org website. All right, let's go ahead and get our readings done. I've got 9. So I've got 8 chairs here plus Rabbi Tom. So we need to fill those up. 8 readings plus Rabbi Tom. So Rabbi, do you want to go first? Why don't you go first? Well, come on up. We'll get you right there first. You get to read the 4 cups and stuff, all the good stuff. Okay? And so what we'll do is we'll call readers up one at a time, and then I'll say a blessing over each reader. I'll tell you what verses that you're reading from and to and all that kind of good stuff. Okay, I've got 4 readers now. I need 5 more here. Let's get some more people seated. There we go. Mandy, you going to read? Okay. Well, let's make sure we fill up all the chairs but one. Leave one for Manny. Okay. I'm going to come over here, so Michael, you can get us situated. All right. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Rabbi Tom, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. And I didn't write down what you're reading from. Let me see. You're going to go from verse 2 of chapter 6 to verse 13. 2 through 13.
Thank you. And Elohim spoke to Moshe and said to him, I am Yahweh. And I appeared to Abraham, to Yitzhak, and to Yaakov as El Shaddai, and by my name Yahweh was I not known to them? And I also established my covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan and the land of their sojournings in which they have sojourned. And I have also heard the groaning of the children of Israel, whom the Mitzrites are enslaving, and I have remembered my covenant. Say, therefore, to the children of Israel, I am Yahweh, and I shall bring you out from under the burdens of the Mitzrites, and shall deliver you from their enslaving, and shall redeem you with an outstretched arm and with great judgments, and shall take you as my people, and I shall be your Elohim, and you shall know that I am Yahweh, your Elohim, who is bringing you out from under the burdens of the Mitzrites. And I shall bring you into the land which I swore to give to Abraham, to Yitzhak, and to Yaakov, to give it to you as an inheritance. I am Yahweh. And Moshe spoke thus to the children of Israel. But they did not listen to Moshe because of shortness of spirit and from hard slavery. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Go in, speak to Pharaoh, sovereign of Mitzrayim, to let the children of Israel go out of his land. And Moshe spoke before Yahweh, saying, The children of Israel have not listened to me. And why would Pharaoh listen to me? For I am of uncircumcised lips. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe and to Aharon, and gave them a command for the children of Israel, and for Pharaoh, sovereign of Mitzrayim, to bring the children of Israel out of the land of Mitzrayim.
Amen. Amen. Okay, thank you, Rabbi Tom. We got names. We got a list of names here. Those are always the tougher ones. All right, come up, Mr. Steve. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Steve, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May that set apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, Steve's going to take us from verse 14 to the end of the chapter.
Okay. And these are the heads of the fathers of the houses. How did I get to that? Okay. The son of Reuben, firstborn of Israel, Hanak, and Palu, Hetzron, and Kamari. These are the clans of Reuben, and the sons of Shimon, Yemal, and Yamin, and Ohad, and Yakin, and Tassar, and Saul, the sons of Canaan, of the Canaanite woman. And these are the clans of Shimon. And these are the names of the sons of Levi according to their generations: Gershon and Kohath and Merari. And the years of the life of the Levites were 137. And the sons of Goshen, Laban and Shimei, according to their clans. And the sons of Kohath and Amram and Yitzhar and Haran and Uzal. And the years of the life of Kohath were 133. To the end of the chapter? Okay. And the sons of Mahal and Musha, these are the clans of Levi according to their generations. And Amra took for himself Jochebed, his father's sister, as wife, and she bore him Aaron and Moshe. And the years of the life of Amram were 137. And the sons of Yitzhar, Koran and Nepheg and Zechari. And these are the sons of Uzla, Mishael, and Elphan, and Setrai. Aaron took himself Elizabeth, daughter of Amrahad, sister of Nashon, a wife, and she bore him Nahab and Abnu, Elzachar, Elazar, and Ishmar. And the sons of Koran, Ishra, Elqua, and Abasaph. These are the clans of the Korites. And Eleazar's, Aaron's son, took himself one of the daughters of Pultel as his wife, and she bore him Pintas. And these are the heads of the fathers of the Levites according to their clans, and Aaron and Moshe, whom Yahweh said, bring out the children of Israel from the land of Mitzrayim, according to their division. And they were one who spoke to Pharaoh, sovereign of Mitzrayim, to bring out the children of Israel from Mitzrayim, and Moshe and Aaron. And it came to be on the day when Yahweh spoke to Moshe in the land of Mitzrayim, that Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, I am Yah, speak to Pharaoh, sovereign of Mitzrayim, that all I say to you. And Moses said before Yahweh, I see I am uncircumcised lips, and why should Pharaoh listen to me?
Amen. I mean, Steve, no disrespect, but sometimes when we do the genealogies and that kind of thing, I feel like we're doing Parsha karaoke. And then we thank people like Steve who said, look, if he could do that, I can get up there and read. Okay, so thank you, Steve, for that. That's going to be like viral now. Rabbi said Parsha karaoke. Okay. You know, when the guy gets up there and they're not following the word. That's hard stuff. If you don't speak Hebrew and you don't understand, like the dot under something means to say it this way, or the line under something or over something means to say it that way. So listen, good college try, so to speak. That was good. Okay, we appreciate it. And by the way, everybody else in the chairs is thankful it wasn't them. Okay, so you did a mitzvah. You did a good deed. You took one for the team. Okay. Charles. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Charles, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. All right, you're going to take us now to chapter 7 and read verses 1 through 12.
So Yahweh said to Moshe, see, I have made you an Elohim to Pharaoh, and Aaron, your brother, is your prophet. And you shall speak all that I command you, and Aaron your brother shall speak to Pharaoh to let the children of Israel go out of his land. But I am going to harden the heart of Pharaoh, and shall increase my signs and my wonders in the land of Mitzrayim. And Pharaoh is not going to listen to you, and I shall lay my hand on Mitzrayim and bring my divisions and my people, the children of Israel, out of the land of Mitzrayim by great judgments. And the Mitzrites shall know that I am Yahweh when I stretch out my hand on Mitzrayim, and I shall bring the children of Israel out from among them. And Moshe and Aaron did as Yahweh commanded them, so they did. Now Moshe was 80 years old, and Aaron 83 years old, when they spoke to Pharaoh. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe and Aaron, saying, when Pharaoh speaks to you, saying, show a miracle for yourselves, then you shall say to Aaron, take your rod and throw it before Pharaoh, and let it become a serpent. So Moshe and Aaron went to Pharaoh, and they did so as Yahweh commanded. And Aaron drew his rod before Pharaoh and before his servants, and it became a serpent. But Pharaoh also called wise men and the proselytizers of witchcraft, and the magicians of Mitzrayim also did so with their magic. And they each one threw down his rod, and they became serpents, but the rod of Aaron swallowed up their rods.
Amen. Amen. Okay, thank you, Charles. Okay, Sarah Beth. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Sarah Beth, who's come up down to Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless her and her family, and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, you're going to take us now from verse 13 to the end of chapter 7.
And Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he did not listen to them, as Yahweh had said. And Yahweh said to Moshe, the heart of Pharaoh is hardened. He refuses to let the people go. Go to Pharaoh in the morning, as he goes out to the water, and you shall stand by the river's bank to meet him. And take in your hand the rod, which was turned into a serpent. And you shall say to him, Yahweh, the Elohim of the Hebrews, has sent me to you, saying, let my people go, so that they serve me in the wilderness. But see, until now you have not listened. Thus said Yahweh, by this you know that I am Yahweh. See, I am striking the waters which are in the river with the rod that is in my hand, and they shall be turned to blood. And the fish in the river shall die, and the river shall stink, and the Mitzrites shall find it impossible to drink the water of the river. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, say to Aharon, take your rod, and stretch out your hand over the waters of Mitzrayim, over their streams, over their rivers, over their ponds, and over their pools of water, that they become blood. And there shall be blood in all the land of Mitzrayim, both in wooden and in stone containers. And Moshe and Aaron did so, as Yahweh commanded, and he lifted up the rod and struck the waters that were in the river, in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of his servants. And all the waters that were in the river were turned to blood. And the fish that were in the river died, and the river stank, and the Mitzrites were unable to drink the water of the river. And the blood was in all the land of Mitzrayim. And the magicians of Mitzrayim did the same with their magic. And the heart of Pharaoh was hardened, and he did not listen to them, as Yahweh had said. And Pharaoh turned and went into his house, and his heart was not moved by this either. And all the Mitzrites dug all around the river for water to drink, for they were unable to drink the water of the river. And 7 days were completed before Yahweh, after Yahweh had struck the river.
Amen. Amen. Okay, May. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless May, who's come up down to Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, May's going to take us now to chapter 8 and read verses 1 through 15.
And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, go to Pharaoh and say to him, thus said Yahweh, let my people go so that they serve me. But if you refuse to let them go, see, I am smiting all your border with frogs, and the river shall swarm with frogs, which shall go up and shall come into your house, and into your bedroom, and on your bed, and into the houses of your servants, and on your people, and into your ovens, and into your kneading bowls. And the frogs shall come up on you, and on all your people, and on all your servants. And Yahweh said to Moshe, say to Aharon, stretch out your hand with your rod over the streams, over the rivers, and over the ponds, and cause frogs to come up on the land of Mitzrayim. So Aharon stretched out his hand over the waters of Mitzrayim, and the frogs came up and covered the land of Mitzrayim. And the magicians did so with their magic and brought up frogs on the land of Mitzrayim. Pharaoh then called for Moshe and Aharon and said, pray to Yahweh to take away the frogs from me and from my people, and I shall let the people go to slaughter to Yahweh. And Moshe said to Pharaoh, explain yourself to me. When am I to pray for you and for your servants and for your people to destroy the frogs from you and from the houses and remain only in the river? So he said, tomorrow. And he said, let it be according to your word, so that you know that there is no one like Yahweh our Elohim. And the frogs shall turn aside from you, and from your houses, and from your servants, and from your people. They shall remain in the river only. And Moshe and Aharon went out from Pharaoh. And Moshe cried out to Yahweh concerning the frogs which he had brought against Pharaoh. And Yahweh did according to the word of Moshe. And the frogs died out of the houses, out of the courtyards, and out of the fields. And they gathered them in heaps, and the land stank. And when Pharaoh saw that there was relief, he hardened his heart and did not listen to them as Yahweh had said.
Amen. Amen. Okay, Michelle. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Michelle, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, Michelle's taking us from chapter 8, verse 16 to the end of the chapter.
And Yahweh said to Moshe, say to Aharon, stretch out your rod and strike the dust of the land, so that it becomes gnats in all the land of Mitzrayim. And they did so, and Aharon stretched out his hand with his rod and struck the dust of the earth, and it became gnats on man and beast. All the dust of the land became gnats in all the land of Mitzrayim. And the magicians did similarly with their magic to bring forth gnats, but they were unable, and there were gnats on man and beast. The magicians then said to Pharaoh, this is the finger of Elohim. But the heart of Pharaoh was strengthened, and he did not listen to them. And Yahweh said to Moshe, rise early in the morning and stand before Pharaoh as he comes out to the water, and say to him, thus said Yahweh, let my people go, so that they can serve me. Or else, if you do not let my people go, see, I am sending swarms of flies on you and your servants, on your people and into your houses, and the houses of the Mitzrites shall be filled with swarms of flies, and also the ground on which they stand. And in that day I shall separate the land of Goshen, in which my people dwell, that no swarms of flies shall be there, so that you know that I am Yahweh in the midst of the land. And I shall put a ransom between my people and your people. Tomorrow this sign shall be. And Yahweh did so, and a thick swarms of flies came into the houses of Pharaoh, and into the servants' houses, and into all the land of Mitzrayim, and the land was ruined because of the swarms of flies. Pharaoh then called for Moshe and Aharon and said, go slaughter to your Elohim in the land. And Moshe said, it is not right to do so, for we would be slaughtering the abomination of the Mitzrites to Yahweh our Elohim. See, if we slaughter the abomination of the Mitzrites before their eyes, would they not stone us? Let us go 3 days' journey into the wilderness, then we shall slaughter to Yahweh our Elohim as he commanded us. And Pharaoh said, I am letting you go, then you shall slaughter to Yahweh your Elohim in the wilderness, only do not go very far away. Pray for me. And Moshe said, see, when I leave you, I shall pray to Yahweh, and tomorrow the swarms of flies shall depart from Pharaoh, from his servants, and from his people. But do not let Pharaoh again deceive, not to let the people go to slaughter to Yahweh. And Moshe went out from Pharaoh and prayed to Yahweh. And Yahweh did according to the word of Moshe, and removed the swarms of flies from Pharaoh, from his servants, from his people. Not one remained. But Pharaoh hardened his heart at this time too, and did not let the people go.
Amen. Amen. Mercy. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Mercy, who's come up down to Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless her and her family, and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, you're going to take us now to chapter 9, and you're going to read verses 1 through 12.
Okay, thank you. And Yahweh said to Moshe, go into Pharaoh and speak to him. Thus says Yahweh, Elohim of the Hebrews, let my people go, so that they serve me. For if you refuse to let them go and are still holding them, see, the hand of Yahweh is on your livestock in the field, on the horses, on the donkeys, on the camels, on the cattle, and on the sheep, a very grievous pestilence. And Yahweh shall separate between the livestock of Israel and the livestock of Mizraim, and let no matter die of all that belongs to the children of Israel. And Yahweh set an appointed time, saying, tomorrow Yahweh is going to do this word in the land. And Yahweh did this word on the next day, and all the livestock of Mizraim died, but of the livestock of the children of Israel, not one died. Then Pharaoh sent, and see, and not even one of the livestock of Israel was dead. But the heart of Pharaoh was hardened, and he did not let the people go. And Yahweh said to Moshe and Aaron, fill your hands with ashes from a furnace, and let Moshe scatter it towards the heaven before the eyes of Pharaoh. And it shall become fine dust in all the land of Mizraim, and it shall cause boils that break out in sores on man and beast in all the land of Mizraim. So they took the ashes from the furnace and stood before Pharaoh, and Moshe scattered them toward the heavens. And they caused the boils breaking out in sores on man and beast. And the magicians were unable to stand before Moshe because of the boils, for the boils were on the magicians and on all the Mitzrites. But Yahweh strengthened the heart of Pharaoh, and he did not listen to them as Yahweh had said to Moshe.
I'm in the middle of writing a note. I got caught writing some notes for this. Okay, good. Thank you, Mercy. Amen, amen. Okay, Kathy. He who blessed our fathers. Excuse me. Let me try that again. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Kathy, who's come up down to Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless her and her family, and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, take us now from verse 13 to 22.
And Yahweh said to Moshe, rise early in the morning and stand before Pharaoh, and say to him, thus said Yahweh, Elohim of the Hebrews, let my people go so that they serve me. For at this time I am sending all my plagues unto your heart, and on all your servants, and on your people, so that you know that there is no one like me in all the earth. Now, if I had stretched out my hand and struck you and your people with pestilence, then you would have been cut off from the earth. And for this reason I have raised you up, in order to show you my power, in order to declare my name in all the earth. You still exalt yourself against my people, in that you do not let them go. See, tomorrow about this time I am causing very heavy hail to rain down, such has not been seen in Mitzrayim from the day of its founding until now. And now send, bring your livestock to safety, and all that you have in the field. For the hail shall come down on every man and every beast which is found in the field, and is not brought home, and they shall die. Those among the servants of Pharaoh who feared the word of Yahweh made their servants and livestock flee to the houses. But those who did not set their heart on the word of Yahweh left their servants and their livestock in the field. Then Yahweh said to Moshe, "Stretch out your hand toward the heavens, and let there be hail in all the land of Mitzrayim, on man and on beast, and on every plant of the field throughout the land of Mitzrayim."
Amen. Okay, thank you, Kathy. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Manny, who's come up down to Yahweh in the Torah, made us set apart one, bless him and his family, and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, Manny's going to take us now from verse 23 to the end of chapter 9.
Thank you, sir. Then Moshe stretched out his rod toward the heavens, and Yahweh sent thunder and hail and fire down to the earth. And Yahweh rained hail on the land of Mitzrayim. Thus there came to be hail and fire flashing continually in the midst of hail, very heavy, such as had not been in all the land of Mitzrayim since it became a nation. And the hail struck in all the land of Mitzrayim, all that was in the field, both man and beast. And the hail struck every plant of the field and broke every tree of the field. Only in the land of Goshen, where the children of Israel were, there was no hail. Pharaoh then sent and called for Moshe and Aharon and said to them, "I have sinned this time. Yahweh is righteous, and my people and I are wrong. Pray to Yahweh, for there has been enough of thunder and hail of Elohim, and I am letting you go so that you stay no longer." And Moshe said to him, "As soon as I go out of the city, let me spread out my hands to Yahweh. Let the thunder cease and the hail be no more, so that you know that the earth belongs to Yahweh. But as for you and your servants, I know that you do not yet fear Yahweh, Elohim." And the flax and the barley were struck, for the barley was in the head and the flax was in bud. But the wheat and the spelt were not struck, for they were late crops. And Moshe went out of the city from Pharaoh and spread out his hands to Yahweh, and the thunder and the hail ceased, and the rain was not poured on the earth. And Pharaoh saw the rain and the hail and the thunder had ceased, yet he sinned again and hardened his heart, he and his servants. And the heart of Pharaoh was strengthened, and he did not let the children of Israel go, as Yahweh had said through Moshe.
Amen. Amen. Give me a second here. Drop my pen. All right, the blessings after the Torah reading. By the way, thank you all you readers. Excellent job, everyone. Baruch atah Yahweh Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Yahweh noten haTorah. Amen. Blessed are you, Yahweh your Elohim, King of the universe, who has given us a Torah of truth and has planted eternal life in our midst. Blessed are you, Yahweh, giver of the Torah. Amen. Amen. All right. Now, let me get my scriptures back open here. Some of you watching are wondering, well, why did I take the bigger one away to look at the littler one? Because the big one is the newer version, and I'm used to thinking in terms of the older version. So I've got the older scriptures here. Okay, so what we're going to do now is, I guess let me just do a quick reminder for people that are new. How many we got on there now? 267. Fantastic. Welcome to all of you. What was that, Marty? Did you need me for something? Okay, you're just directing over there? Okay. Okay. Just a quick blitz through the announcements. Just a reminder, we do this every Tuesday. If you're new and we're not here earlier when we gave announcements, we have Saturday services every Shabbat, 1 o'clock. The Tuesday service that we're doing like this starts at 8 o'clock. These are Eastern time. Okay, we have coming up for you in March, we have Purim. We'll talk about that more. We obviously have more than a month before we get there. And so just a little over almost 2 months, really. Got a month and a half to go till March 10th, I believe. Then in April, we have Passover, and we have an event for Passover that we keep as a group, and the information and applications and registration forms are on our website. Okay, that being said, now let's get into the Torah portion discussion. So this is how this works. If you're here, you raise your hand. Steve will bring around the mic. Manny's going to be taking care of the stuff from the live stream. We're going to give him a couple of minutes to get some of that kind of going, and then we're going to get the mic to him pretty quickly because he's going to leave about a half an hour to go pick up my son. He's going to help me out because Stephen is working tonight, and I need to have somebody go get him. So I appreciate that, Manny. All right, so Steve, let's start in here. Now, when we do this, for you on the live stream especially, this is what we're trying to do. We're looking for you in the Torah portion. What can you learn from the Torah portion that you can glean that has to do with your walk and your, did you get a distinction that has anything to do with us as a covenanted people or that people and how it relates to us and our mindset, our thinking, our approaches, or anything like that especially. Now, of course, most of you are going to ignore everything I just said and just ask me all the questions you've always wanted answers to, which is okay. But I give the guidance anyway, just because it needs to be out there. All right, so who wants to go first? All right, Steve, go ahead.
Okay. This is for the chapter 6 there. I see all that was promised, but because of shortness of spirit and hard slavery, we refuse to listen, wait, and obey. So to me, that's like, how can you allow what life has done to you keep you from eternity when it wasn't his fault? It was basically something we failed to do.
Okay, so we taught this a little while back with the wording of having a weakness, like being weak in the heart and being weak-minded. Lacking heart and being weak-minded, that's really this idiom that's being said here. Because they were in hard slavery, they couldn't believe that Moses, what he had to say, would actually happen. They had lost any hope, and so their mind couldn't grasp. And a lot of us, this is where we're looking for you in this. Have you come to a place where you're just about losing any possible hope that what Yahweh says could actually happen? Could I actually make it into the kingdom? Could all this really be true? Could there really be a hope of a redemption? He gives us, in verses 6 and 7, what is commonly used during Passover for the moving through the service of the Passover meal, what's known as the 4 cups. Now, there's no mention of cups here, but this is kind of what they use, the 4 cups of wine at Passover by Jewish tradition, and it really has to do with the 4 ideas. They're bringing you out from burdens, the deliverance, the redemption, and the acceptance as his people. Okay? And this is really the key, and I've done teachings during Passover, I think the unleavened bread teaching, and that comes out of the idea of utilizing that you need to understand that your process of growth, your walk, okay? And this kind of goes to what Steve was saying. He told them that they could be unburdened. Do you accept that you can be unburdened, that he can take you? He said, look, I'll bring you out from under the burdens of this world, the slavery. Now, Paul tells us, what kind of slavery does Paul tell you you're under? You're slaves to sin. You're slaves to whom you serve. You're under the law that rages and wars in your members, the law of sin and death. If you're new on this, listening to me, you're going to be thinking, but the Christians tell us that's the Torah. No, that's never been the case. Well, the Christians still do that, yes. But the law of sin and death is the law of your self-sovereignty. What you decide is right and wrong, and that leads to death. You are bending and twisting of what Yah said, and that leads to death. And you have been in bondage to everything that you have decided in your life because you've not come under vertical correct alignment and authority. Okay? So he's going to give you, Yeshua says, my yoke is light. Come and let me unburden you. Now, it's not just, as Christianity might teach you, for like unloading your emotional baggage, although God knows we need that. Okay? But it's all that goes along with that, what caused it, what you're dealing with, and all that other stuff. So he's going to bring you out from your burdens. And your burdens are generally, and we've seen this many times, people that have come under vertical alignment and end up in a worse place than before. Don't run out from under the covering. He says, but you have to believe him, though. Yeshua says, when I return, will I find belief on the earth? He says to Israel here, now remember, we're looking for ourselves. They turned out, in verse 9, it says that they did not listen because of a weakness of mind and a lacking of heart. Really, it says shortness of spirit and hard slavery. They just quit. There wasn't any belief there. They were all in a mode of, I accept my misery and I'm just going to exist in my misery and I have no hope. So they couldn't believe him. He said, I'm going to deliver you from the enslavement to Egypt, to Mitzrayim, which is also the self-sovereignty. Aren't you tired of the results of all your dumb decisions? I want to let him make some decisions for you. And I don't mean just stop making decisions, but get counsel and allow him to guide through counsel and help you make better decisions. Or, you can just keep doing what you're doing and I can ask you, later on in your life, how's that working for you? No, let me just do that now. How's it working for you? Being self-sovereign, is that working? See, if it's working, you wouldn't be here. If it was working, you wouldn't counsel. If it was working, you wouldn't struggle. It's not working, is it? Self-sovereignty is not working. Hasn't worked all the way to Adam and Chava. As soon as they got a little self-sovereign, they got booted out. Bad things happened. But he says, I can bring you out from under all your burdens. I can deliver you from your enslaving. I can redeem you, which means that you're now going to be mine and not theirs. I'm going to redeem you. I'll pay the price so that you belong to me. But belonging to me doesn't mean I'm going to accept you as my people. That's the last step. You belong to me. Everybody on the planet really does belong to him. We don't all know it, though. But that doesn't mean he's accepted everybody as his people. Oh, but now you're talking or hinting that there might be works. Of course there is. The first work is belief. I'm sorry, but that's a work. You must choose to believe. And that could be, for a lot of us, a tremendous effort. Because you're struggling against the enslavement of your mind, the enslavement of your life. And so don't make works be just like, eating this way or keeping that day. Those are works, but those are the easy works. I hate to quote like the Matrix, but you need to free your mind. Your mind is enslaved. And the real taskmaster is you. Don't blame Satan for that. It's you. He's egging you on and telling you need to be in charge of you. But you need to free that mind. You have to be careful that you're not suffering from shortness of spirit. Okay, think of that as not spirit like we normally think in other places, but more like life, energy, vigor. You've got a lot of quit. You've given up. Your shoulders are slumped. Your head is down. You're weak in the legs, weak in the knees. You know what I'm saying? You've got that sort of just existence, that little trudging that you see in the movies with like the slaves sort of just barely shuffling their feet, head down, shoulders, kind of hunched over. You can be that way in your head without your physical body doing that. You can have quit. And so it says Israel didn't believe what Moses had to say. Do you believe what Moses had to say? Because we're looking forward to the second Exodus. the greater Exodus. You're not going to get there if you don't believe. Oh, but Israel was taken out of Egypt. Okay. How many of them ended up in the land, so to speak? Not a whole lot. From the men 20 and over, 2. Not a real good percentage. Okay, 2 out of 603,550, but who's counting? All right? That's not a lot. You know, that's why it's called a remnant. And we think, oh, look at how big this whole thing is getting. Don't look at how many people and bodies are in this thing. There was a lot of bodies coming out of Egypt, about 2 million, maybe 3 million. When you count just the men, think about how many women and children there must have been also. That's only the men 20 and over was 600,000. So you can easily, what, triple, quadruple that? 2, 3 million people? And so what do you end up with? 2. Now, some of the children make it from the next generation, etc., but only 2 out of 600,000. Wow. What was the difference? The works. He delivered them all. Just like Yeshua says that he was slain from the foundation of the world, he did what he did so all of us could have an opportunity at eternal life. But what percentage actually are going to end up in? I hate to believe that it would be as bad as this. I'd like to believe it'd be better. Might not. What's going to make the difference? The same difference that we're going to see in the journey out of Egypt. The decisions and the works that they do, which is all going to be based on the length, I was going to say length because it's short, but the status of their spirit. And I don't mean that again in a Christianese way, so I hate to use that word here because I don't think that's what it's talking about. The energy level of conviction and belief that they're going to put towards walking what they believe. The strength as opposed to weakness. Shortness of spirit means they were weak. I don't just mean physically weak, they were weak in their mind, in their hearts. There was no fight in them. I'm going to make it. I'm in it to win it. I'm going to get there. You see? The strength of spirit is exemplified in Caleb and Joshua when they say things like, let's go. He said the land is great, and everybody else is all freaking out. But there's giants, and we're like little bugs to them. They're so big, and there's big walls and all this other stuff. And they're like, what are you talking about? Yahweh said we'd have a great land full of milk and honey, and look, we got grapes so big we got to carry them on a pole between people. But the other people were still short of spirit. They were weak-minded. They were lacking heart. You guys who struggle realize that's normal. He's testing to see whether or not you're weak-minded and how much heart you have. So if you believe him and have a strong mind, and you strengthen your mind, and you strengthen your heart, and you get that will to go forward, believing that he will unburden you, deliver you, redeem you, and accept you as his people, you got a shot. Now you're heading in the right direction. And the only reason I say you have a shot is not because that's not enough. You got to keep it till the end. Having it now is great. Maintaining it throughout your life till your last breath, that's the effort. And again, remember, Deuteronomy 8:2 is about the heart to demonstrate a willingness as opposed to a perfection. That it's in your heart to keep his commands. In other words, there's no quit. You're going to just do it, and if you get knocked down, or if you make a mistake, you're going to brush yourself off. Well, you get on your knees first, you repent, then you get up and you brush yourself off. You release all that nonsense and move forward again. Just get up and go. Get up and go. Get up. Keep picking. You know what? Picture like Rocky in the movie, in the first one. He kept getting knocked down, but he kept getting back up, and he'd pound on him some more, and he'd get back up. Until towards the end, after all of that, and it looked like he was pretty much done, he got up again, and he was like, come on, give it your best shot. I'm not going to quit. You're going to have to kill me. Great picture. Great metaphor. I mean, we could go into the rest and the plagues and all that stuff, and that's all fun and games and stuff, and it wasn't so much fun and games for them. The big part is right here at the beginning in chapter 6. You're getting the same offer they got. Do you believe that he will unburden you if you let him, if you trust him, that he will deliver you out of all that enslavement, that he will redeem you from all of the junk and that you've been, because you were sold under slavery, you were sold under all this other stuff, you were going to be redeemed unto him and then accepted as his people. Not a complex contract. Just like at Sinai, you're going to do what I say, I'm going to take you as my people. Now at that point, he'd already delivered them. He'd already brought them out from under, delivered them and redeemed them through the 10th plague, right, where he had them protected against the firstborn death. In other words, there was an exchange, a protection, the blood of the Lamb, all picturing things for Yeshua. And he got them to Sinai. He said, now that I've done all that, the acceptance of my people part has to be a contract between you and me. It's not enough that I brought you out. It's not enough that I unburdened you. It's not enough that I redeemed you. I need to trust you. And you need to trust me. That is the entire journey since you were given your first breath. Okay? Can you be trusted? And will you trust him? Because they get to Sinai. They even make a promise. But they were still short of spirit. They were still weak-minded and lacking heart. Most of them. Many of them. And so they get laid low in the desert, as it says. You're going through your own desert right now. Don't get laid low in it. Keep getting up and say, come on, give it your best shot. I'm not going to quit. I'm going to keep getting on my knees and praying. I'm going to keep repenting. I'm going to keep radically owning everything I do and not blaming it on everybody else. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to let it go. I'm going to take another step forward. Take a few more steps forward. Going to make more mistakes. Get back on my face. Repent. Own it. Don't blame, don't point. See, people forget why David was a man after Yahweh's own heart. Because he's about the only person you read in Scripture when he had a finger pointed at him and said, you did this. He never pointed a finger at anybody else but himself and said, you know what? I own this. I have sinned. Didn't blame anybody else, didn't make an excuse. That's what Yahweh's looking for. Call it radical ownership, extreme ownership, whatever word you want to use. You need to own. Stop blaming my mother, my father, my congregation, my pastor, my rabbi, my, oh my, oh my. Own that your life is your responsibility. Okay? You got to own that. Yes, you had a dysfunctional family. I don't know why anybody calls it that, because I don't know anybody with a functional family. It seems kind of normal, actually. But you had a family that didn't function as it was designed to be. And you've had abuses in your life, and you've been treated badly, and all this other, whatever junk you've got. Own that you need to let that go. Not own that it was your fault that all happened to you. Own that you are still responsible for what you do right now. Stop blaming them. That might have been why you did stuff 20 years ago, 30 years ago, whatever it was, because it was forced on you and done to you, but you're not there anymore. Stop using that junk as an excuse. Oh, but you don't know. Why would you think I don't know? You know how many stories I hear? I've heard things that some of you be like, really? Wow. There are people that have been through stuff you can never imagine. And I've heard, I won't say I've heard it all, but I've heard a lot. And you know what? I know that the ones even in the most extreme experiences, once they owned that they can make new decisions now, regardless of what happened to them, their lives changed radically. Because they were no longer enslaved by the other life. See, that's what this is talking about. Are you still enslaved to your former life? You're supposed to bury the old man, not let the old man come out of the watery grave and like haunt you forever. Leave him in the water. All right? It's a watery grave. It's not supposed to still be alive and haunting you. We don't believe in ghosts like that. But you're the one keeping that alive in you. You're still believing stuff that was spoken into you by other people. Take control. Let it go. Stop believing that junk. Be unburdened. Be delivered. And you don't have to go to a deliverance ministry and do a repeat after me and all that other junk they do in deliverance ministries. And publicly embarrass yourself by blurting out every embarrassing thing you've ever done. Just make a decision. I'm not going to do all that dumb stuff anymore. And all that dumb stuff I did, I'm not going to own that anymore either. I'm going to accept that I did it. Whatever it cost me, it already cost me. And I'm not going to let it keep costing me. Because I've been delivered, I've been redeemed, I've been unburdened, and I'm going to be accepted. Amen? See, but a lot of you think, well, how can he accept you? Because, I mean, after all, you know what you did. Ooh, you know what you did. Let me say it this way. At this point in your life, it shouldn't matter what you did as long as you're not still doing it. You did what you did. And you can either let that ruin the rest of your life like it ruined the previous part of your life, or maybe what was done to you may have ruined a previous part of your life, but it's not still happening to you. So stop letting that stuff continue to wreak havoc in your life or wreck your life. You are to be unburdened, delivered, redeemed. And you have to believe if you do those things that he says because of that you can be accepted. And acceptance simply requires one thing, that you believe and that you walk in that belief. Which means that you trust if you obey his voice, you'll receive what you're supposed to receive. It's not complicated. It's an emotional marathon. So you feel drained, like you're dripping, like run ragged and put away wet, run hard. I mean, you're just dripping with emotional sweat, so to speak. I mean, but it's not any physical effort. It's because of all of the junk that has been spoken and lied to you in your life that you believed and owned. See, these people were dealing with double. They had physical slavery and emotional slavery. You only got half of that. You are not in physical bondage. I mean, you can come and go as you want. They couldn't. You can work wherever you want. They couldn't. You can live wherever you want. They couldn't. But you have the same problem that was more problematic for them because they were freed from that physical part, and it was the other part, just like with you, that they struggle with. They didn't believe, even though it was right there, happening in front of them. They didn't believe. And by the way, this is before the plagues. Guess what? After the plagues, no change. They still didn't believe. All the way to today, a few thousand years later, no change. And Yahweh's sitting there very patiently going, just like when Yeshua said it, he goes, am I going to find belief when I come back? I think he's going to wait until there is some belief. We're all waiting on him. Well, it's your fault he's not here, so I'm blaming you. I'm kidding, of course. But you have to own some of that. If you're not trusting him and you're not believing him, you're part of the reason he's not here. Because I think, that's just my opinion, I think he's waiting for the bride to make herself ready. Why do I think that? I don't know, because it says so in Revelation. So it doesn't say he's waiting for that. It just says that the bride has made herself ready. So it's a simple logical assumption that he's going to wait until that happens. It's not like he said the bride has made herself ready and he shows up and she's not ready. In Revelation it says she has made herself. Wait a minute. It says she made herself ready. Oh, he didn't do it for her. She believed And because she believed, she took the necessary actions in compliance with covenant, in trusting him and obeying his voice. Now, I'm going to put you in a place that maybe you're not, maybe you are. Let's say for a second that you're single. So even if you're married, imagine you were single. And you're now looking for a mate. Are you looking to marry someone who is burdened, enslaved, emotionally crippled, needing to be redeemed, short of spirit, so to speak, weak-minded, lacking heart? You wouldn't do that. If you were aware that that's what the person you would marry would be, would you marry that person? No. So why would we think Yahweh would do it? And he knows. See, you don't know. You can get fooled. You can see a man or woman that you think you're interested in. You don't, because you're too distracted by the emotions to notice it was right in front of you that they're weak in the mind or the heart. That's why you need to counsel, to make sure your emotions haven't blinded you to a weak person. I don't mean that, I mean, you can find someone who's paralyzed, wheelchair, and they're not weak. This is a heart-mind thing. This is not a physical thing. Okay? It's not about intelligence. It's not about smarts. It's about having no quit and having strong belief. Someone who believes and is going to make every effort. So if you would never do that, because you laughed when I said it, like, that's absurd. Why would I ever marry somebody like that? If I met a person like that, I would turn around and run. Okay, you're not going to want to marry that person. So the bride, in that case, is not ready. Or groom, if it's in the fleshly world. Well, of course, we know our groom is ready. We are the bride. We are not ready. And that's what this whole thing is about here. And he can do things to, in a metaphor, bring those plagues and get you set free from all of that stuff. And by the way, do you notice when they're leaving Egypt that the Egyptians were not thrilled? Just like your friends and family, fellow church members from places you used to attend. They're not any more thrilled than over here. Your life is right in here. Okay, now I know we were supposed to take all kinds of comments and questions from here, but I thought that was the key. All right, you need to see yourself in this. This is the whole story is right there in verses 6 and 7. That is the story right there. He will if you let him. I shouldn't even say that. He's done some of these things already for you. You just have put yourself back in burden. You don't want to let go. You don't want to come out from under. You don't want to be set free. You've chosen to stay enslaved. He has provided a means of being unburdened, delivered, redeemed, and accepted. If you're not, whose fault is that? Own it. Look in that mirror and own it. Unless you don't believe it, that's again the problem. You have a belief problem. You have a faith problem, a trust problem, an emunah problem, right? The Hebrew. If you don't know that he has provided unburdening, deliverance, redeeming, and acceptance right there for you to have at any moment you want it, and you don't have it, whose fault is that? Okay? In Christianity, we say, you want to claim the victory. Victory? You don't even believe that you've been unburdened and delivered and redeemed. Not in that reality there. Oh, people walk around all the time, oh, I'm redeemed. Redemption is what they want to talk about the most. No, you're still holding on to you're allowing yourself to be burdened and enslaved. And you're claiming redemption. Then what was the point of redemption if you're going to still stay burdened and enslaved? And I'm not talking about Pharaoh here. I'm talking about you, your Pharaoh. King you, up in that throne there, self-sovereignty. You're the Pharaoh in your life. Not your boss, not your spouse, not whoever you want to name anybody you want. It's not Hasatan, it's you. You are the Pharaoh preventing you from going out 3 days and worshiping Yahweh the right way. It's you. Own it. If you own it, you know what the great part is? It means you can fix it. If it's somebody else, you can't fix it because you can't make them do whatever it is you think you need to make them to do. But if it's you, and here's the cool part, it's as simple as changing your mind. All you got to do is change your mind. What mind? The mind that you have into the mind of Philippians 2:5, the mind of Yeshua. But you can't do that if you don't have faith. You don't have belief. So is all of this about faith and not works? Absolutely, because you're not going to have works unless you have faith. Without the faith, you're not going to do the things that are the works, are you? You know, not happening. Of course, I told Manny to leave at about 9:45, and I'd let him ask the questions first, and he didn't get any of them in. That's okay. I'm on a good roll. It's probably more important that we cover this anyway. Okay? Otherwise, people are going to ask me all kinds of questions that have nothing to do with your walk, which is fine. I know you're curious about stuff. All right? Manny, did you have any key ones you want to squeeze in real quick? Okay. In the meantime, I guess we can go over here to Sarah Beth, because you have a mic in your hand. Listen, I'm telling you right now, stop playing. Everything I said is serious. Otherwise, you are going to end up laid low in the wilderness, and that's the end of the story. Do you understand? Your story could end in the land, the kingdom, so to speak, right? A metaphor for the kingdom, or you can end up laid low, which is basically the fire. That's it. It's over. And that's all up to you. He's done everything to make it possible for you and will continue to help you along the way. You've got to choose. And your actions will show and demonstrate what you've chosen. All right, Sarah Beth.
2 comments / questions, hoping you'll elaborate on them. 6, 7. He also mentions it throughout the portion and throughout the scriptures, but he seems to be very, very interested in us knowing him, which seems very simple, but at the same time, very deep, complex at the same time.
Well, what he's trying to make sure that they understand at this point is not just knowing him. So you're not wrong. But he's trying to emphasize that they know that it was he, not any other entity, not any other thing, not themselves, that it was he that unburdened them, delivered them, redeemed them, etc. So he's saying that you will know that I am Yahweh, I am your Elohim, and I'm the one who did all this. Which is why, by the way, if you get to Exodus 20, the first commandment, which I think is much better enumerated by the Jews than by the Christians, is I am Yahweh, your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Egypt. The first commandment is not, and you shall have no gods before me. The first one is knowing I am Yahweh. Okay? The idols and the you shall have no other God before me is one commandment. Because that's how you will make sure you have no other one. But the first commandment is to know that he is the one who brought them out. Because remember, there was a polytheistic, stone, wood, animals, whatever, nature, they worshiped everything. To the point where even in this Torah portion, he says, well, we can't just do the slaughterings we want to do to our Elohim in front of your people here in the land, because we will slaughter stuff they worship, like cows, lambs. These are gods to them. He says, we have to go away so we don't offend anybody. And so he wanted to make sure, look, you need to know. And by the way, you get to Leviticus 17, 18, 19, those like 3 or 4 chapters, he'll tell them 3 or 4 little instructions and finish it with like a because I said so in the form of I am Yahweh. In other words, I am the one who actually has authority to say everything I just said. Know where your source is. Know where this information is coming from. So you're right. He wants us to have a relationship with him, and that's important. But in this case, he's saying, I am Yahweh. He says, you shall know that I am Yahweh, your Elohim, who is bringing you out. So he starts off earlier saying, my name is Yahweh. Just so we're clear, he says here in verse 2, he says, in verse 2, he says, right, Elohim spoke to Moses saying, I am Yahweh. So that you know, as we go through this process, it is me, Yahweh, who's doing all these things. Good? All right.
Second, in verse 12, Moshe hints at his fear of messing up, basically. Him not saying something right or saying something or embarrassing himself or something, and how often, and I can own this t-shirt, Yahweh brings us to a great opportunity and we're terrified we're going to mess it up.
Yeah, I mean, look, you know, Moses is saying, look, and by the way, some of you, this goes back to the same story of not feeling worthy, not feeling qualified, not feeling like you're competently going to make it. You know, Moses is speaking to Yahweh saying, look, the children haven't listened to me. Why would Pharaoh listen to me? I have uncircumcised lips. I'm nobody. I've not done anything worthy in my life. Why did you even pick me? You know. It's like, and you want to send me to Pharaoh. Why would he listen to me? My own people aren't even listening. Nobody's listening to me. Why would he listen to me? He's Pharaoh. He's the king. I can't even get slaves to listen to me. So some of you may feel like that in your life. Like, you know, why would anybody listen to me? Why would anybody believe me? Well, first of all, why are you even trying to convince anybody of anything? See, Moses didn't want to do it, but he had no choice. He was sent. Well, you know, in Matthew 28, well, you're not Matthew 28. Okay, Matthew 28 was trained, anointed people. That Great Commission is great for 12, or possibly 70 or 120, but they were trained. It wasn't just a general command to anybody that happened to find out about Messiah. Okay? They were trained to do. Moses was sent. It was like one of your first apostles. He was sent. And a shaliach, he was sent to do, a man with a message. And he's thinking, people aren't listening to me, and they're slaves. Why would a king listen to me? Okay? Did that answer your question? So be careful in your life. Look for those moments. Okay, Rabbi Tom.
Okay, is it all right to go to chapter 7?
Go wherever you want.
Okay. Something occurred to me when I was reading through here earlier. When Moshe threw down his rod and it became a serpent, so did the magicians. And of course that backfired on them. And then when he turned water into blood, so did the magicians. And he brought forth frogs, so did the magicians. And this got me to thinking that the same thing is happening today. I'm sure that many people there couldn't tell the difference between the power that enabled Moshe to do what he did and the power or whatever it was that enabled the magicians to copy him. We have a lot of magicians out there today that are copying. They do so-called miracles, and they have mega churches, and they impress a lot of people. Of course, the magicians couldn't undo anything. They could only make it worse. People don't see that, you know. And so that's what impressed me. We have to beware of, like he said, beware of false prophets, because they're duplicators.
Amen. Amen. Look, you know, in my notes, I have that, you know, the magicians did the first two, and then they got they ran out of gas by the third one. With the gnats, they said, we're unable to do it. And then starting after the third one, Yahweh makes a separation. Okay, he protects Israel in Goshen. And so, with the swarms, Israel was safe. Cattle disease, Israel was safe. Boils on the Mitzrites only. Hail on the Mitzrites only. Darkness on the Mitzrites only. It doesn't say about the locusts, but we can make the same assumption since the locusts are dealing with the same stuff that the hail did. And of course, the firstborn on the Mitzrites only. They were protected by the blood on the doorpost. So he says, I'm going to make a separation in chapter 8. I'm going to separate and protect. I'm going to put a distinction. That's really the key. I'm going to make a distinction. What was the distinction? That you should know that I am blessing my people. and I'm protecting my people. By the way, is this not essentially Deuteronomy 28, right? In the first half of the chapter, the blessings. I will protect them, put my hand over them. While others are suffering, they won't. When others have drought, they won't. When others have, diseases, they won't. When others are barren, they won't be. When others are chased by armies, they won't be, right? This is the beginning of showing for the people, look, stuff's going to happen all around you, but you will be safe. Let that be also a lesson to end times. Wherever you are, he has a plan for you to be safe. We also know there will be some that will be martyred during that time, and you should not be afraid of that. They are greatly honored in the book of Revelation. Okay, we don't know which one's which and who's who and how that all plays out specifically, but just know that it all works out for the good if you're in either one of those groups. Okay? So just bear that in mind, because I know a lot of people are trying to figure out, well, where do we go? What do we do? An anointed appointed was sent to tell them what to do. Yes or no? All right, did the people figure this out? No. And by the way, if you notice, they were already very nicely and neatly already in one place in Goshen, which is why I believe that there's a possibility that makes sense to me that when these things play out, it'll be during a feast when you guys are already gathered together in one place. Which is why I encourage all of you, stop playing games with your second tithe and with your just wanting to stay home. Get to a feast site. Get in the habit of being together. Not that he needs the ease of having us all in one place, but we have the precedent for it. They were in one place. Of course, they were all in one nation. So being in one place in that nation was easier. We're scattered all over the world. I'm thinking at least be at a feast site. Then we're all at least in bigger groups in less locations. That doesn't mean it's what's going to happen. I'm just saying it certainly makes sense as a good possibility of something that could happen. So why not make yourself available to that? Besides which, it's a commandment. It's obedience. And the life lessons you learn there are something you can't learn at home in your living room. All right, who's next? Okay, Marty's got the live stream.
All right, starting with Namagasa. Is a second Exodus biblical? I keep hearing pros and cons.
Yeah, I think I mentioned that already, so that was covered. I think that we're being shown, and by the way, there is a verse, I'm not sure exactly where it is off the top of my head, but there is a verse that says that the second Exodus, the greater Exodus, will be so much greater than the first one that they will no longer talk about, this is Yahweh, the Elohim of the people he took out of Egypt, but this is Yahweh Elohim who took the people from wherever he scattered them all over the world and brought them back to the land. Okay? Go ahead.
Libby Rakasuguri, chapter 6, verses 6 through 8. Are these I wills part of the promises that 2 Peter 1:4 spoke of?
It's funny when these questions come, I almost feel like people just assume I know what that is without looking it up. But anyway, let me look it up real quick. 2 Peter 1:4. Through these there have been given to us exceedingly great and precious promises, so that through these you might be partakers in a mighty like nature, having escaped from the corruption in the world caused by... Well, yes and no. Yes, it's exactly everything I said today shows that is the pervasive plan for us all the way throughout time from this point forward. That's always been the plan. But also there were other promises given or reaffirmed. And that's what Yahweh does all through scriptures. He takes promises and reaffirms them. Gave them to Abraham, reaffirmed them to Isaac. Gave them to Isaac, reaffirmed them to Jacob, right? Reaffirmed them all the way through to Yeshua, who's reaffirms them then through the apostles, through Paul, through Peter, etc. James. They'll reaffirm certain things about things that were promised. Okay? But in Peter's case, he's also referring to things that Yeshua said specifically. Of course, what he said was completely in line with everything that had been said previously. All right? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, MTOI Lakeview, Ohio, Exodus 6:9. I'm not sure if this is a question or a comment, but it says, how often do we allow ourselves to be distracted and full of hearing and not being able to hear the word brought forth by a leader?
Absolutely. That's a good, I believe that's a comment. But is a comment meant for us to ask ourselves that question, you know?
Olivier and Janet Hoffman, 6:9 was the shortness of spirit, lack of emunah.
Well, I think I answered that question. Okay, next.
Okay. Adam, Exodus 6:12 and 6:30. What did Moshe mean uncircumcised lips?
I think I mentioned that too. He just felt unqualified. Okay.
Okay. Martin Sanchez, 7:1. Hashem make Moshe as Elohim. Can you explain?
Yeah, look, a lot of things in your scriptures, and I have that as one of the verses to cover, has to do with picturing roles. In other words, metaphors so that we can understand people's relational, interactive role. For example, Yeshua and the Father as Father and Son. That's not a literal the way we would think of it, because that would be like there was a mother and a father and they were intimate and they had a baby and all this other stuff. We don't have any of that there. But for us to understand that relationship, our best metaphor for that is to understand the role and the relationship of a father and a son. Okay? Here, the relationship was that Moses was going to be as Elohim and Aaron was going to be as a prophet. What does a prophet do? He speaks with authority on behalf of Elohim. So Aaron is the spokesperson for Moses, and Moses is, so in that role, he's Elohim and Aaron's a prophet. Okay, going before a king. This is what normally happens, by the way, with prophets. Prophets were normally sent to the authority figure, usually the king, representing Elohim. In this case, Moses was sent to Pharaoh. Moses is sent to a man who doesn't have the same belief system as he does, doesn't believe in the same Elohim as he does. So when we're not talking about like the king of Israel or the king of Judah having a prophet go to them who's supposed to be in covenant with Yahweh and represent Elohim through that prophet. So in this case, Moses is Elohim, so he's in the vertical, he's up the chain, right? Because the one above the prophet is Elohim, metaphorically in terms of that authority. So this is all to give you a relational understanding. It didn't mean that Moses was a god, okay? But it's to kind of give you that authority, okay? It also meant that Aaron wasn't to question anything. He was simply to be the voice of Moses, the voice of Elohim. That's what a prophet is. Prophets should have no filtering through their own junk or their own opinions, their own stuff. They are just the voice of Elohim. Okay, go ahead.
Shakez Lee, Exodus 7:3. Have I understood you correctly that Yahweh didn't cause Pharaoh's heart to harden, but allowed it to go in the direction it was already going?
Yes, but I would put the word strengthen in there. And actually in the newer translation, it has the word strengthen. The Hebrew is actually better translated as the idea of strengthening it in the direction it already wanted to go. But that also gets translated hardened. But again, remember, language changes over decades, let alone centuries, and we're going back a long way to when this was written. So it's not that Pharaoh really wanted to let them go. He felt forced, he felt compelled. He was a weak man, ruled by emotion, ruled by fear, ruled by ego and pride, all the weaknesses of men. So in that moment, he said, good, get out of here, fix this, leave. But he really didn't want them to leave, which is why whenever the prayer of Moses caused it to stop, whatever the plague was, he was like, oh, it's good now. You guys can't go. And all Yahweh did was strengthen it in the direction he already wanted to go because he wasn't finished with what he wanted to do. Remember, Israel is always used as an instrument of Yahweh for his purposes, which sometimes is to give somebody or a nation what it should have, in other words, the reaping of what it had sown. He uses Israel that way when he brings them to the land to deal with all the ites. Okay? Because people say, well, how come he went in there to the land and he wiped out all these ites? Well, they were all deserving of this for various reasons, and this was Yahweh's instrument of bringing that reaping. Do we know all the details of what that was? No. But we know that that's what they were doing. They were his instrument. So the same thing here. He was going to do certain things to Egypt, period. And if Pharaoh was going to let them go in his panic for a minute, he's like, no. I know you really don't want to let them go, and I'm not done with you. I am going to destroy this land. But I'm not going to destroy it all at once, because my people need to see a series of signs and wonders. Otherwise, if it was just one thing, they could just write it up to some sort of, just natural disaster. Okay? Because look, after all, the magicians are like, look, we made the water blood. Hey, look, we brought frogs. Hey, look, they could have tried to use things to say, hey, that wasn't Yahweh. But when you see, and even that didn't work from enough that even at one point Yahweh has to say through Moses, later on, we'll see this in the rebellions, if these men die as normal men die, okay, fine. But if they die in a way that is unheard of, the ground just opening up and swallowing them, then you'll know Yahweh's Yahweh. Or with Elijah, when he has to dump all the water on the fire and everything out on the wood, and then Yahweh comes and just takes that burnt offering. We're just really hard to convince. We just have trust issues upon trust issues. And we have such belief issues that Yahweh has to go to incredible extremes, and we still don't want to get it. It's very, very frustrating, I'm sure, for him, to watch us. Not so much frustrating, but heartbreaking. Please stop suffering and just trust me. Why do you cause yourself all this suffering? If you would just trust me, you'd be happy, safe. You'd have shalom, peace. You'd overflow with joy. Oh no, I'd rather do it my way. All right, what else?
Norma Silva, were each of the plagues linked somehow to the different gods they had in Mitzrayim? So also Yahweh showed his power to the Israelites over any god.
Okay. We cover this in our Passover Haggadah, which is the book we use, or the little order of service we used for during the Passover meal. In it, we cover that it is likely that the way we talk about it is this. If he's going to bring them out of slavery, bringing them out from spiritual bondage first, then physical bondage second. So he first made a mockery of all of their mighty ones. So yes, each plague could have been a way to show that their so-called gods were of nothing. So that's very likely something that we do use and teach during the Passover meal as we go through the plagues, and we demonstrate and name some of the gods that were likely being shown to have no power. So very good point, and that's something that we do use.
That's it.
All right, fantastic. And good job by Marty, who's not usually on that side of the camera for this stuff. Okay. Maybe you should read the questions and play bass at the same time. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so, because he's used to being in the front with his guitar. All right, good job by everyone. Thank you all for being a part of this. We do this every Tuesday night. We're going to go ahead and ask Mr. Craig Lane to close us in prayer in a second here. If you have any further questions, comments, or anything deeper that you really want covered, always feel free to call us or contact us. Don't email me, not because I don't want your email, just because I'll never see it. It's hard for me to keep up. I literally get hundreds a day. So if you really have a question and it's urgent or have a need, call the office here, ask to set an appointment, and we'll try to get that done. If you just call and leave a message and you're not there when I call you back, I can't call you 15 times trying to find you. I might not leave you a message because I'm probably calling you after the hours here. You'll call right back. You'll get the voicemail anyway. Best for when you call to try to make an appointment. Okay, we'll get you on an appointment, and then I'll know to make sure to have that done. All right, so Craig's going to close us in prayer, and then if anybody wants to come up here and wave goodbye, we'll do that. Go ahead, Craig, lead us in close.
So Vito Malcano, we thank you for all that you do. We just thank you for your word. We thank you for our Messiah, for the mediator that allows us to have the contact we have with you. We thank you for our leadership and for the chance of a vertical alignment. We just pray that we have the strength to be doers and not hearers. And we just thank you for all that you are. In Yeshua's name, amen.
Amen. Amen. All right, I enjoyed that. I hope it was a blessing to all of you. Be unburdened, be delivered, be redeemed, and be accepted. Strengthen that heart and strengthen that mind. Let that mind be in you. Come on up and let's wave goodbye to everybody. Just watch the wires coming around. All right, Michael will let us know if we're all in the camera here.
That's not the first time I got that section.
All right, we good, Michael? But he wants to get in the camera. All right. He's got to get his coin out. There he goes. For those of you online who have no idea why anybody would be reaching for a coin, go watch a little video called The Legend of the Coin. Arr. No, I'm kidding. Okay. So what we're going to do is on 3, we're going to wish everybody, listen, so we're going to say Laila Tov, which is good night. Shavua Tov, have a good week, and tell them we love them. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Laila Tov, Shavua Tov, we love you. And we'll scratch the beard too.
That was like almost the okay sign. My throat's starting to go a little bit. When you going to eat or you're going to go home?
I'm going to go home. I've got a daughter who's already home and a son who's going to live here. So no going out.